يوم ترونها تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت يوم ترونها تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت وتضع كل ذات حمل حملها وترى الناس سكارى وما هم بسكارى ولكن عذاب الله شديد ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ويتبع كل شيطان مريد كتب عليه أنه من تولاه فأنه يضله ويهديه إلى عذاب السعير يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم من علقة ثم من مضغة مخلقة وغير مخلقة لنبين لكم ونقر في الأرحام ما نشاء إلى أجل مسمى ثم نخرجكم طفلا ثم لتبلغوا أشدكم ومنكم من يتوفى ومنكم من يرد إلى أرذل العمر لكي لا يعلم من بعد علم شيئا وترى الأرض هامدة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت وترى الأرض هامدة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت وأنبتت من كل زوج بهيج ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأنه يحيي الموتى وأنه على كل شيء قدير وأن الساعة آتية لا ريب فيها وأن الساعة آتية لا ريب فيها وأن الله يبعث من في القبور ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ولا هدى ولا كتاب منير ثاني عطفه ليضل عن سبيل الله له في الدنيا خزي ونذيقه يوم القيامة عذاب الحريق ذلك بما قدمت يداك وأن الله ليس بظلام للعبيد ومن الناس من يعبد الله على حرف ومن الناس من يعبد الله على حرف فإن أصابه خير اطمأن به وإن أصابته فتنة انقلب على وجهه خسر الدنيا والآخرة ذلك هو الخسران المبين يدعو من دون الله ما لا يضره وما لا ينفعه ذلك هو الضلال البعيد يدعو لمن ضره أقرب من نفعه لبئس المولى ولبئس العشير إن الله يدخل الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات جنات تجري إن الله يدخل الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار إن الله تجري من تحتها الأنهار إن الله يفعل ما يريد من كان يظن أن لن ينصره الله في الدنيا والآخرة من كان يظن أن لن ينصره الله في الدنيا والآخرة فليمدد بسبب إلى السماء ثم ليقطع فلينظر هل يذهبن كيده ما يغيظ وكذلك أنزلناه آيات بينات وأن الله يهدي ما يريد صدق الله مولانا العلي العظيم. الرحيم.
Jazakallah Qari Anas. Thank you. Over to you, Imam Tariq.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Tonight is one of those special nights inside the month of Ramadan. It is the night of the 17th, and this is the night, the eve in which we commemorate the Battle of Badr, which was the first battle fought in Islam. And there are many special days throughout the year. In fact, there are many special days in the month of Ramadan. And one can ask, well, why point this one out versus some of the other ones? So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about why this is an important event and why we should commemorate it and remember it. When we think of the Sahaba, we usually think of them as one block of people, the people that were around the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. But when we do that, we forget that the Sahaba were different kinds. There were different kinds of Sahaba. They were people that became Muslim at different times during the Prophet's life, alayhi salatu wasalam. And inside this block of the Sahaba, there are these subgroups. One of the subgroups of the people inside the block of the Sahaba are those who fought in the Battle of Badr, the 313 companions, radiallahu anhum, that fought in the Battle of Badr. And the Prophet ﷺ said about the people that fought in the Battle of Badr, he said, it is possible that Allah Ta'ala has looked at these people after their stance on the Battle of Badr and say, do whatever you want for the rest of your life, you are forgiven. And that's a huge statement. That's a huge endorsement from Allah Ta'ala and from the Prophet ﷺ. So it's incumbent upon us to remember this event, to remember those people, and to understand why. When the Prophet ﷺ left Mecca to Medina in the Hijrah, after the 13 years of his prophetic life in Mecca, we know from the Seerah that the Prophet ﷺ was persecuted, the Muslims were persecuted in Mecca, and it was a very difficult time for them. It was so difficult that they really weren't even able to leave until certain things happened. And finally, 13 years later, they were able to leave from Mecca to Medina, assuming that they had left all of that nonsense behind, all of that torture, all of that persecution. They had finally won their freedom. They had finally come to a friendly place, Medina. It became a political entity under the dominion or under the rule of the Prophet ﷺ, and they assumed that everything was going to be okay. Now the Hijrah took place at the very end of the month of Safar, which is the second Islamic month, and the Prophet ﷺ ended up arriving in Medina about 2 weeks later on his birthday on the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal. That Ramadan, so between Rabi al-Awwal and Ramadan is about 5.5 months. That Ramadan, on the 17th of Ramadan, was this Battle of Badr, meaning that the Prophet ﷺ and the early Muslim community, not only did they try to flee this persecution, but this persecution followed them even in the same month that the Prophet ﷺ arrived in Medina. By the end of Rabi al-Awwal, if the Prophet ﷺ arrived on the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, only 2 weeks later, by the end of that month, there were already threats coming from the Quraysh in Mecca. So this was it's like a pressure cooker in which there was this intense pressure on the early Muslim community, and things came to a fruition that the only way that they could survive, that the only way that they could continue their way of life, that the only way they could find their freedom was to take this physical stand on the Battle of Badr against Quraysh. 313 people against 3,000. When you think about that, when you think about not just those odds, but when you think about that stance, this is one of the most moving episodes from our entire history. Right before the battle commenced, the Prophet ﷺ, he turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he said, if this group of people perish, you will never be worshipped on this earth. That not only was it the survival of the early Muslim community, not only was it the survival of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, but it was the survival of this monotheistic message as we understand it, something that is pure, that is unadulterated, that is clear, that is transparent, that is transmitted from generation to generation, what we understand as our Islam. That's how high the stakes were. And because of that bravery, And because of the odds that were against them, it is only fair that we acknowledge and we remember those who stood in battle. I remember when I was younger and we used to study the Seerah, I could never understand why in the Seerah literature there's always this focus on battles. I didn't understand. I didn't understand this until I thought about President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. When President Lincoln visited Gettysburg almost a year after the Battle of Gettysburg to consecrate and to dedicate the cemetery for those who have fallen on the Union side. And we know as people that grew up here and went to school here, we're all familiar with the Gettysburg Address. But President Lincoln said that the people that fought in that battle expressed the last full measure of devotion. To stand for what you believe in, to put your life on the line for what you believe in, for your freedom and for the freedom of your family and for the freedom of your people. He said this is the last full measure of devotion. And when I understood that phrase, that beautiful phrase, I understood why remembering things like the Battle of Badr is important, because the Sahaba that stood at that battle expressed the full measure of devotion that they had to the Prophet ﷺ, the full measure of devotion they had to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that this was the final act. There was nothing else they could have. They were patient. They went to Abyssinia twice. They fled from Mecca to Medina. And when we say that the Muslims fled from Mecca to Medina, it's not like they relocated and got some moving vans and moved their things. They left everything behind. They left their family behind. They left their livestock behind. They left their livelihood behind. All of that to free themselves from that persecution. They exhausted all aspects of peace and appeasement, and it came down to this one battle. And as President Lincoln said, this is the full measure of devotion. We just heard in the recitation, Allah Ta'ala warns us not to be the people that worship Allah Ta'ala on the edge, ala harf. If something good happens, they're happy, but if something bad happens, they give up. That's not the full measure of devotion. But the full measure of devotion is that all of us, with all of our being, we come into Islam. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kafa. O you who believe, enter Islam, all of you, with everything that you have. And because of that resolve that the Muslims had, Allah Ta'ala blessed the Prophet ﷺ and the early companions in the Battle of Badr. We know that many of the angels fought, and they quickly routed the kuffar of Quraysh. The Quraysh retreated and they came back to Medina victorious with this very, very important battle. That this was the difference between belief and disbelief. And that is why on the eve of the 17th of Ramadan, every year it is really something that is important for us to just remember, just for a few minutes, remember it for a few minutes. There was one of the ulama, he wrote a poem enumerating all of the companions that fought and died in the Battle of Badr. I'm gonna send it right now in the chat. There's a PDF. If you just copy and paste this link, you can download an English translation. It's not very good in English because it's an Arabic poem, but this is the idea, is that this is one way of expressing devotion. What I like to do on the night of the 17th is I like to read this poem to remind myself of those who stood before us to sacrifice. Ramadan is the month of victory. Ramadan is the month of great spiritual openings. It wasn't just the Battle of Badr that happened in the month of Ramadan, but the conquest of Mecca happened in Ramadan. The Battle of Yarmouk happened in Ramadan, in which the Muslims were victorious over the Persians. The opening of the Maghrib, of West Africa, and the opening of Andalusia also happened in the month of Ramadan. There were many very critical battles during the Crusades that the Muslims won during the month of Ramadan. So this is not a month of laziness or a month of wasting time or whatever, but this is the month for us to really open ourselves to receive these great insights and openings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to remember, in our history, there were great feats that happened during this blessed month. So let us remember those who came before us, who sacrificed so that we may have this religion freely and purely transmitted to us without any blemish, without any hidden things. Let us also remember the Sahaba that stood and to try to imagine what it must have been like for those 313 people. I mean, if you were standing there, you were probably certain you were going to die. I mean, there was no choice. You had to do that, but you're probably, this is it, it's the end of my life. There's 3,000 people in front of you. They have horses, they have shields, they have swords. The Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba almost had nothing other than their faith. And this is the biggest lesson of the Battle of Badr, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَوْمَ بَدْرٍ لَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. Allah ta'ala says, we gave you victory on the day of Badr and you were debased. You were debased in number, you were debased in resource, and this is the message for us, that victory does not come from great numbers and great resources, but victory comes from devotion, from conviction. And it was in that most vulnerable moment on that battlefield that the Muslims pulled from that vulnerability their victory. That they were able to snatch victory from the enemies because they had that devotion. And that's why that phrase by President Lincoln is, at the risk of sounding blasphemous, it's almost like a prophetic statement to say the last full measure of devotion, because to stand and to give your life for something that you believe in, for this cause, for this, for your freedom just to believe, to have all of you in it is to express your full faith in that thing. And it is from that vulnerability that victory comes. And this is a message for us. Most likely, none of us will ever be called to make this kind of stance in our life. And alhamdulillah. But we all the time feel, we have our ups and downs. We have times when we're emotionally vulnerable, when we're emotionally weak, when we're overcome by disaster or we're overcome by difficulty, etc. And let us remember that it is at that moment in which we are most vulnerable, it is at that moment in which we can find our victory. This is one of the lessons of the Battle of Badr, that Allah Ta'ala gave the believers victory because they were in that weakened state. And because of their weakness, they turned to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala after bringing forth all type of preparations that they could bring. Fundamentally, they turned to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and they asked Allah Ta'ala for victory, and Allah granted them victory in a way that they were not able to calculate or anything like that. So just a little detour in our evening discussions because of the vast importance of this episode in our history. Let us remember the Sahaba that stood and fought with the Prophet ﷺ, not just in the Battle of Badr, but all of the battles. Let us remember and rededicate ourselves to our faith and to our commitment, that we may draw these inner meanings from our recitation and our reflection of the Quran. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
Thank you, Imam Tariq. Over to you, Karianas.
So inshallah, before we start the dua, the ayah that Brother Tariq mentioned, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ, Surah Al-Imran, ayah 123. Surah Al-Imran, ayah 123. In the Zoom chat, I mentioned all the du'as that we have in the Quran, from Surah Al-Baqarah until Surah Al-Nas, with the number of the ayahs. And today we're going to take a moment to make du'as for Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So inshallah, raise your hand. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه عدد خلقك ورضا نفسك وزنة عرشك ومداد كلماتك اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه عدد ما خلقت وعدد ما رزقت وعدد ما أحييت وعدد ما أمت اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه في كل وقت وحين وفي كل ملة ودين وفي العالمين إلى يوم الدين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه كلما ذكرك الذاكرون وكلما غفل عنك ذكرك الغافلون، وعدد من صلى عليه وعدد من لم يصلي عليه وعدد أوراق الأشجار وعدد مياه البحار وعدد ما أظلم عليه الليل وما أضاءه عليه النهار. صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه صلاة تكون لك رضا ولحقه أداء، وأعطه الوسيلة والفضيلة والمقام المحمود الذي يغبط له عليه الأولون وعليه الآخرون. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه كما تحب أن يصلى عليه وكما ينبغي أن يصلى عليه وكما أمرت أن يصلى عليه. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه صلاة تنجنا من جميع الأهوال والآفات وتقضي لنا بها جميع الحاجات وتطهرنا بها من جميع السيئات وترفعنا إلى أعلى الدرجات وتحل بها العقد وتفرج بها الكرب وتقضي بها الحوائج وتنال بها الرغائب وحسن الخواتيم. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه صلاة ينفرج بها كل ضيق وتعسير وتنال بها كل خير وتيسير وتشفينا من جميع الأوجاع والأسقام وتحفظنا في اليقظة والمنام وترد عنا نوائب الدهر ومتاعب الأيام. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على النبي الأمي سيدنا محمد المختار وعلى آله الأطهار وأصحابه الأخيار. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على خاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين وإمام المتقين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين شفيع الأمة وكاشف الغمة وملجي الظلمة. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على النعمة المسدات والرحمة المهداة والسراج المنير صاحب الشفاعة الكبرى والوسيلة العظمى من نصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على صاحب الحوض المورود والمقام المحمود والمكان المشهود. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على من صلى عليه تحط الأوزار وتنال منازل الأبرار ورحمة العزيز الغفار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Ameen.
Just very quick before the dua, I forgot to mention that Ramadan that the Sahaba fought the Battle of Badr, that was the first Ramadan in which fasting was obligatory. So it was doubly hard, because when the Muslims came to Medina, this idea of fasting as an obligation in the month of Ramadan didn't happen until a couple of months later. And then after that, it came the Battle of Badr. So imagine, this is your first Ramadan ever, and then you're called on to make this big thing. So I forgot to mention that, just one of the historical facts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless those Sahaba that fought with the Prophet ﷺ in that battle and all of the battles. We ask Allah ta'ala to give them the highest levels of paradise for their sacrifice. We ask Allah ta'ala to give us the kind of faith that they had, to us for us to enter into this faith completely. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and to bless our families and to bless those around us. We ask Allah ta'ala to have mercy on those who have passed before us and to give them maghfirah and to give forgiveness and to give them paradise. We ask Allah ta'ala to bless and protect our parents. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless and protect our children. We ask Allah ta'ala to bless and protect our masjid and all of our institutions and our businesses and our schools. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from this virus, and may we be able to come back to the mosque safely, inshallah. We ask Allah ta'ala to accept our fast in the month of Ramadan, our prayer in the month of Ramadan, our supplication, our efforts to understand, to listen and to read and understand the Quran. We ask Allah ta'ala to accept from us. We ask Allah ta'ala to make us benefit from Laylatul Qadr. May we all be present for that night whenever it comes in these last evenings of Ramadan. We ask Allah ta'ala to forgive us for our sins and our shortcomings. We ask Allah ta'ala to grant us freedom from the hellfire and entrance into paradise, and to join us with the Prophet ﷺ on the final day, in which nothing will help us except that person who has come to Allah ta'ala with a sound heart. We ask Allah ta'ala for a sound and clean heart. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.